Get ready to crank up the volume because you're about to enter the realm of rebels and rock stars. Unleashing the thunder from down under the stage. We're diving deep with a deviance of melody, rhythm, and chaos. Now push up your sleeves and get ready to dive into the pit. It's time for Sitting with the Slimy Bastards, Music Edition.
Alrighty, welcome to the Slimy Bastard podcast show this afternoon. Got a special guest here. Andrew Spaulding is joining us from Corpse Paint Records. And I want to give a quick shout out to a couple guys that helped me get this going and that. And Brian Anderson Custom Lures, and then Old Slade Pit out there in Rock Springs, Wyoming, with his t-shirt designs and all that shit that he's doing out there for racing and that. So Andrew, welcome to the show. We've been in talk for a little over 4 months now, and glad to finally to get you on here. So awesome. You're down in Florida, and how you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, out here in post-eclipse universe. April 9th, we made it. So
yeah, no problems. We're doing this, so that's a plus. It's funny because they sit there and say all this shit of how the world's going to end and all the computers banking. You had to have so much cash on hand. It's the same bullshit. What is it back? What was that? What was the last eclipse? 2016, 2017, something like that.
Yeah.
It was the same bullshit of, and at that time I was actually out in Idaho, and it a full eclipse out there, and
sure.
It was the same damn thing, except the only difference was they actually lined the interstates up. The Interstate 15 there.
Yeah.
They had porta potties along the interstate because they were expecting all this fucking traffic and everything. And
sure,
it was nothing like it. But
nothing.
Did you have a full view of it?
It was pretty decent. We in Florida, we experienced 50-something% of totality. I saw somebody put in there that'd be a great metal band. And I was like, you know what? That's great. Total, that is great. Anywho. So we didn't get that, but yeah, I could tell, it got definitely darker, it's like throwing on some sunglasses. You experienced it. I really noticed it from the shadow effect on my lanai in Florida. I was outside, and why it was happening during its peak, it was definitely, noticeably evening time instantly.
Sure. Did you notice the birds and shit get all quiet and everything too?
I didn't notice that because where I'm at, there's lots of birds always around. So you probably have heard them already. So I didn't really know because I'm always just in tune with them, hearing them constantly. So I didn't really see that. My dog didn't freak out, do anything weird. So it seemed pretty normal. I did enjoy some of the conspiracy stuff online. I like a good conspiracy theory myself. I like to dig a little deeper than the average guy, but that's okay. But it was fun. But I know I don't like the doom and gloom. I do like the truth, and I think there's alternate. I know I'm not. I do think that we are led to believe certain things that aren't necessarily the truth all the time. So I like to go but I don't, anyone that I feel that brings doom and gloom to it has an agenda, and I don't like anything with an agenda. I just like truth, and truth doesn't have an agenda. Truth doesn't subscribe to anything other than itself. And
shut the fuck up and give me the straight.
Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes I don't like the truth at all, but man, you got to stare at it and you're like, yep, that's what it is. But anywho, but yeah, man, we made it. So it was only 50 or so percent total totality. And but it was still cool.
Yeah. So tell me, with this Corpse Paints Records, how long you been doing it? What's the story behind it? How'd you get all this going?
Yeah, man. Thanks for asking, and really appreciate the interest in the label. It's always exciting when something that you're really passionate about your whole life that folks are interested and about it. So super stoked. So thank you for taking the time. It was an idea of mine. I've been a music fan my whole life. I grew up that kid MTV generation, like most folks, but music was around my dad. So, anyways, I was a roadie for a bunch of years. I got off the road because I had a family and mainly doing merchandise for bands. And I hung that up to be a dad. And my kids are starting to hit the teenage years, and their interests obviously are music related. Since day one, I've been blaring music.
Yep.
And I met their mom at a Typo Negative concert. And so, and their mom's related to Willie Nelson, so like their mom's dad's a musician, so they're just overloaded with music. So as I saw their interest in music become more and more, I was like, hey, I knew some of the guys in Green Day, and started talking about that stuff, and they're like, oh, really? That's cool. And so I always wanted to do a record label because Epitaph Records I was a super fan of in my teenage years, which was started by Brett Gurewitz of Bad Religion when they were teenagers, putting out their first 7-inch. And then he kind of grew that label into like this punk rock powerhouse with Pennywise and Rancid and NoFX, who branched off and did Fat Records and kind of did the same thing that Epitaph did, but had its umbrella of punk bands, almost like what Rick Rubin had. In a broader sense, Rubin's umbrella was with American Records, or Def American, as we originally knew it as he would do some hip hop stuff with Def Jam, with Run DMC and Russell Simmons. And then he did the metal stuff that was, his own, which was, the Def American, where she did Danzig and Slayer and Chili Peppers and, all that stuff. So super cool of those things. To me as a kid, I always found super cool. So I always were interested in guys that were doing stuff behind the scenes too, not just in the bands. And so I knew that there was always more to what was being presented from me than just a song. And that it took more than just the idea of the musicians that come up with the song, but how it was being presented to me at the time. I knew there was more people involved in that, and I was kind of interested, like, who are those guys?
Right. More behind the scenes, and that's actually kind of how I got into. I mean, like you, so big into music. Started out being an Elvis Presley fan, still am diehard Elvis fan.
Yeah,
and then just grew and. My first metal album was actually Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon. And then just gravitating towards that. And then, but actually, who did you all work for, like doing the t-shirt and merch and all that? Where'd that start at?
That started with, I started as a merchandiser. The first band I worked for was The Offspring. And that was through a roadie of theirs named named Roach.
Okay.
And but so I never and that they were a big warehouse. So like I kind of got in through the different folks that I know. I grew up a Bad Religion super fan as a kid, as I was explaining, of like I love the idea that a band not only where they did their own stuff, but they were their own record label. Like that stuck out to me as one of the few bands that were doing, not only were they were their own hype man. And so I was like, wow, they believe in themselves so much. They're not but knowing their stories, they had to, because nobody else was putting their music. If they wanted a record out, they were going to have to do it. Nobody's going to do it for them.
Right. At that time, was Places taking part of the merch, like the merch sales and that? Was that going on back when you were doing that?
Sure.
Because it nowadays, I mean, these guys are struggling to make things happen. I mean, the record label deals, I mean, it's just not like what it was when we were growing up.
It's
And
not. It's a
um,
double-edged sword. I see both sides of it. Do I think it's dumb? Of course. Does the band get a cut of the bar? No. You know, uh, so I get it, but I also understand, a deal's a deal. You cannot make a deal. I think it's dumb. I don't think it necessarily services the bands. It doesn't, but um, what are you gonna do, right? You're gonna
right,
have you're not gonna sell. I mean, some bands like Fugazi, they did fine. Like I saw Fugazi as a kid for $4 and you couldn't buy a t-shirt.
right.
They're happy
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. It's interesting just how times have changed with all that, though. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I
it's
think, I believe in the bands. I don't think there should be a merchandise cut, but if a promoter is expecting to recoup the loss of his guarantee in merchandise sales, then they should just change the guarantee up front and just do business up front. If he's
yeah,
expected to make $5,000 of t-shirt money because he knows this band brings in this and that he's going to walk with this in cash, if he's looking to do that, well, then, I think they should change it up front. But I also, those guys like Live Nation that are saying that they're dropping it are kind of sticking it to the lower guys what they're doing because they know that lower guy is making that money. So it looks good for Live Nation to say that because they're not worried about Metallica and Ghost. They're doing just fine.
right,
And those
right.
guys have merchandise deals, those bigger bands anyways. So
Sure.
they're not worried about it. It kind of more hurts the smaller bands is what is why the goes. But at the end of the day, I don't think I don't see why a band should have to give a cut of their merchandise to a facility. It doesn't make sense
Yeah,
to
and
me.
that's the big thing, especially with these up and coming band, the bands that aren't doing, like you said, like Metallica and some of these bigger arena shows. You know what I mean?
It's a big
Um,
cut. Yeah, man.
yeah, and stop and think how much money is made just in one show. I mean, take Pantera for example. I mean, look,
Yeah,
I mean, it's just insane of what is probably even done at a live show there, just in
yeah,
merch sales.
man. In different markets, people have different pockets, when you go to higher end places. Like I would say Offspring was one of the larger bands I worked for. And when you played in somewhere like Colorado, where the average person has deeper pockets than, say, the Midwest,
Um,
um, you'll see a huge jump in sales too. So from like you may do $2,500 one night in this crowd in Idaho, and then you may do $12,000 to that same crowd. And they're just from how the economy is in the local areas, and it's
yeah.
weird to see all the different factors that play into it for sure.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I never thought of that, just touring across the nation of, I suppose you see that quite a bit of what areas are hurting, what areas are
Oh,
striving and
A
all of that.
markets, B markets, C markets
Yeah,
for sure, man. And you see it too of how people pay, if they're paying you in fives and ones versus of 20s and 100s of like
right.
what the local economy is if they're, if
Sure.
they're, in the service industry or if they're in the professional community. It's
Yeah.
just like anywhere.
Yeah. So the band you have with Corpse Records, I am. Um, how'd this all come about? I mean, where'd this all stem and where did it
Yeah.
and so I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, but this is how I actually came across you is because
Okay.
I follow the guys of Typo Negative really close. So that's
Yeah.
one of them and Elvis Presley is my two favorite bands, or
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
but having met seeing Typo Negative, I don't know how many different times.
Hmm.
Really good. One of my best friends who recently just passed away, but his close
Okay.
friend Mike Amano was actually
Hmm.
uh, Typo's tour manager for a while.
Yeah.
And then I actually was on the street team with Roadrunner for, God, I
Wow.
think 5 or 6 years.
Very cool.
And So I've met them guys a ton of different times, and it's funny you sit there and you say that. Now, fast forward 20 years, and you could sit there and say, "Yeah, I've seen typo negative, da da da." And I honestly think, and I could be completely wrong, but I truly think just by watching the feeds on Facebook and Instagram and just all the social media aspects, I think they're bigger now than what they were
They are.
when Peter was still alive.
They are. That's a fair statement. That's truth. Yeah.
And it's in a way it's sad, but it's kind of cool at the same point that
It
people are
is.
still talking about them. 20, I think is that Bloody Kisses and Slow Deep and Hard was way, way before its time.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
it's
Yeah.
but anyway,
I was a super fan. So yeah, how I got started. Yeah, I was a super fan of the band as a kid. I discovered Typo Negative when I was 16, 17, Bloody Kisses, and saw them for the first time in Lafayette, Louisiana for $4. And then the next night on the Danzig 4 run, it was Godflesh, Typo, and Danzig. So I was familiar with Typo Negative as a kid.
uh-huh.
And then I got a Typo Negative roadie job from a Danzig job. I was out with the Danzig guys, and Johnny and Kenny were two members of Danzig at the time. Kenny did one run as Danzig's guitar player on a Blackest of Black tour. And Kenny and I really hit it off and became fast friends. And so did Johnny and I, because Kenny and Johnny are a package, as you know. They're great guys. Of course, they're individuals, but they're joined at the hip at this point.
Right.
Let's face it, So we all became fast friends. And then when the Danzig run was ending, Typo was gearing up to release Dead Again. So I worked for Typo, and Kenny and I became fast friends. I lived in New Orleans, and so I became friends with Kirk Winstein just being in the music industry when I wasn't on the road working for bands like Typo Negative and Danzig. I worked at the House of Blues as a venue hand, a stage hand, and would load in different bands. So I stayed active there. And so, I got to know a lot of the local guys, because the Down and Crowbar guys are well established, NOLA proud. And so you start to know the people that are from there. And so I got to know Kurt. And Kurt, one of Kurt's biggest influences was Peter Steele and Ace Frehley. It's Jeremy again, speaking of Typo. He's texting me in here. Is Ace Frehley a Peter Steele, and Kenny was in a band with Peter his whole career, and Ace Frehley was Kenny's biggest influence as far as a guitar player. So here's these guys that are basically cut from the same cloth, that are peers in the industry, and kind of mimicked each other, of Crowbar and Typo, throughout of even the circles that they ran around with Pantera, of how close Kirk was with Pantera and how close Typo was with Pantera. So it seemed like I knew it was a fit. I just knew now, can they talk musically? That's going to be the thing. Can they get into a room, and can they plug in and look at one another and make songs? That nobody knows until you make that moment happen. So it was always a hot topic of conversation, of getting to know two of these guys on a personal level and becoming, knowing them intimately now as friends. Kenny was the best man at my wedding. Kirk would be at my house for Christmas and the holidays. And so it's not that I just knew these guys. I knew them I knew their inner kind of workings of how they thought, how you know somebody. And so I knew that they would already get along. And of course they have met, up teen times scattered throughout the years with Dime, with at Pantera. So they already had a history of knowing each other. In fact, one night on the Dead Again tour, Pepper and Kirk was recording Down 3. We're on the bus and hung out all night. So there was already a really working friend relationship. So I knew if they could talk songwriting, it would go. And so that was like herding cats. So it took me a while to get some things together. I finally I quit drinking. I drink some non-alcoholic beers. I enjoy those here and there. But I quit drinking regular alcohol all the way. I'll do, like I said, I like the fake beer. I like the process. I just don't do the leaded anymore.
Yeah. There's
But
nothing wrong with that, though. You know what I mean? I
no,
mean, it's
to each
that
their own. I
right.
liked it so much I had to leave some for everyone else, So I just figured I'd do a favor for all those people that, I was so serious about the beer drinking.
Right.
Luckily, I hung it up before anything, anything happened in my life. So, to that point, as my kids were getting older and interested in music, and I always wanted to do this idea, I thought, this would be a great time to show my kids, you got to believe in yourself, and they can watch me grow this idea and this inspiration that I've always had and into something actual. And so it's been a process, but that's what that's what it done. So fast forward, finally getting, of course, Kenny and Kirk knew immediately, like, yeah, I would love to be in a band with that guy, or I love Crowbar, and Kirk's like, I love Typo. It'd be so fun to be in a band. Yeah, make it happen. And then Kenny would visit me in New Orleans throughout the years of being friends, and of course we would get together with Kirk, and then I would throw out the idea, and it'd always kind of be like that. And then finally I moved from New Orleans, and I was maybe feeling homesick of, now I don't have Kirk's friendship, all the relationships long distance. So maybe it was my subconscious, like putting it in together of like wanting to hang out with my friends again. But I got sober, and I finally was like, dudes, when are we going to make this band happen? And of course, it was no brainer that Todd and Johnny were going to fill out this, because like I said, Kenny and Johnny are a package. It was no doubt. And then kind of Todd with Kurt's, and I have a relationship with Todd very similar to Kurt. Todd and I became really close. So it wasn't a doubt to fill out the band. It was just getting it together. And so really it wasn't getting 4 guys to know each other. It was getting 2, because Kirk and Todd are brothers, and Kenny and Johnny are brothers. So it's just getting 2 brothers essentially to get to know each other. So all the pieces were already fit together. It just took literally somebody orchestrating it. And they got into a room in Sarasota, Florida, and plugged in. And Kenny's like, I have a couple ideas of this riff. And Kirk's like, I have an idea for a riff. And they put, those 2 riffs together, and Todd was playing bass, and Johnny, it's a studio kit, and was just tuning up the drums and was listening to what they were doing, and said, hey, Todd, why don't you drive a bass line? And Todd started driving the bass line, and Johnny started playing like this. He says it kind of reminds him of Sly and the Family Stone. So he kind of added like this funk drive to it. And then that's how that song was born, the first track. And the next day, that was rehearsal. They rehearsed it for the first time for maybe 3 to 4 hours, and kind of worked out the arrangement. We went out to eat. We woke up in the morning and drove to Gainesville, Florida. I used to work for a ska punk rock band, Less Than Jake. And the bass player is a producer as well, and has done many records, including Less Than Jake records, out of his studio called the Moat House. And I've been there, and Roger fit us in and was like, hey, I got guys that are just doing, it's a brand new band. We got 1 song. We're going to be in and out. Can you fit us? And he's like, yeah, I'll fit you in. So great. And so they all took a chance too. They flew in with their guitars, and Johnny with his snare, and and everything else was house gear. And so they were kind of feeling uncomfortable, not necessarily having some of their signature equipment. They're like, well, we're doing this for you, buddy. And I'm like, thanks. And it sounded great, and it came off like I anticipated, better than they thought. And they were like, holy shit, we're on to something. And they were as excited about it as I was, because it felt effortless. It just worked. There, as Kirk has said many times in interviews, there was no egos involved. it felt like two dudes in high school that like a new kid came to like one school. We're like, you're into rock, I'm into rock. You want to, yeah, let's jam, and that's exactly what it felt like. There was no like, this guy's from Typo and this guy's from Crowbar. It was two rockers plugged their shit in. It's like, what do you got? I got this. Like, oh yeah, bro. And it just
all works together.
did.
So, and you put out the well, I think there was what, 3 songs on that EP that
We've
I
done
know I
two
got.
singles. We've done 2 singles, and we have a third song's complete. We did "Dreams Always Die with the Sun," which was the first one that Roger produced, and we had Jay Rustin mix. And then we did Cryptomnesia, which came out on Black Friday of 23. That was kind of a more developed sound. This one stemmed from about a 10-day session that we had in mid New Orleans. So we've had 2 10-day sessions and that one Gainesville song knockout. And from there, we got about 7, 8 completed songs that were 7 or 8 that we're going to have on an EP that we're going to have out summer. I want to hopefully say May-ish, mid-May. I can have hopefully to have a release date. It may creep into June, but I'm hoping to have a mid-May release date. It'll probably at least be 4 or 5 new tunes, and more than likely the 2 singles that we already have out to fill it out. And then, hopefully from there we'll gain some interest on playing live, that now that we got a 40-minute or so set of material, that we can be a nice support act for an established headliner, or some festival dates or along those lines.
And the festival dates actually kind of makes sense because some of these guys are already there anyway for festival stuff anyway, aren't they? Weren't they? I mean,
yeah, that gets tricky, man. When you start to try to herd cats with other people's herd of cats, man, that that stuff can get heavy, but it gets done all the time, right? Like at Rockville, there's going to be Shadows Fall, Anthrax, Mr. Bungle, all 3 of those bands share members, right? Yep. So it's not that it's unheard of. And Seventh Void opened up for Typo on the last Typo run. So there's not the last one, but on a Typo run, Seventh Void was main support. So,
the first time I actually met Johnny and Kenny was actually when they were opening up for Motley Crue.
Oh, cool.
And Mike was Motley's tour manager at the time. And we were in Bonner Springs, Kansas at that outdoor amphitheater.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the first time I ever met these guys. And we just graduated high school. We seen Black #1 video on Headbangers Ball all the time. We recorded it. And that's the only way you can play it back and forth all the time. But anyway, I remember this. Me and my buddies were like, holy shit, it's the guy's a Typo Negative. And we walked over there and we were scared to fucking death. And we walked over there and Kenny was standing there and I said, hey, you're the guy's a Typo. And he goes, oh, what's up? And he goes, meet my new drummer. And he poked him on the side. He goes, well, say hi, dipshit. And is this cool? Like how you said those 2, and I think that's actually when Johnny just joined Typo Negative. Then it wasn't very long before that, I think. But yeah, how you say those 2 are joint at the hip. That's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
Every time I've seen them, those 2 are always together.
They had a history of friendship and of playing together before Typo even. So it's a pretty organic relationship for sure.
Sure. So you're gonna are you adding any more bands to this deal you got going on, or what do you?
Yeah, I
what's your
want
thoughts
to.
there?
I have lots of interest, and I'm interested in several. But right now, I got to get this I am off. Once I can get the I am out and support it the way that it deserves to be supported, then it'll create the time, and then hopefully with with the success of having some live shows, it'll allow Corpse Paint Records to recoup some of its investment. And then if I can recoup some of that investment, of course, I want to return that back into more into the label. And that includes one of a band that I would be working with right now is Root Brain. It features Victor Santura from Celtic Frost and Triptychon.
Okay.
He was the last live guitar player of that band. It's black metal grunge. If you can imagine such a two mashup of worlds colliding, and it's kind of like Triptychon. I'm sorry, it's kind of like Satyricon meets the Smashing Pumpkins. And it's really good, and it's really unique. I think it's really fresh sounding. Two of the guys are from Finland, and two of the guys are from Germany. I think I know at least two are from Finland, and I know Victor's from there. But they're great. The songs are awesome. Their first album, it's on Spotify now. They have new material coming out. They're doing some live shows. So yeah, I'd be working with them, but I'm really being an independent. I'm the guy.
Right.
All my funds right now are tied up with IM, and
Right.
I want to make sure that this project gets every ounce and every penny it deserves.
Sure.
So my focus is there right now. But yeah,
Right.
I will definitely shift that focus. Hopefully, once I get the EP out and IM can get some tour dates on board, that's really my main focus. Once those things happen, then I'll the finances will be in line to introduce some other acts to the label.
Uh-huh. Is it when you're not doing all this, because it's got to be kind of stressful at times, right? And kind of chaotic and that, especially when you got the guys coming in and doing recordings and all this other shit, and you getting stuff going. What do you do on your downtime? I mean, you say you got your kids and that, you're doing your family thing, but when you're kicking back, what do you love doing?
Man, I've in my sobriety, I found spirituality. And I've been meditating for several years, and that consumes a lot of my hours in the day. I meditate anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours daily. And in doing that, I've learned a whole lot about myself, and I've learned a whole lot about the universe, and it's changed my outlook on everything in this existence, and it's been the most beautiful thing that I've got to experience.
Yeah. And
how's that for an answer?
yeah, it sums it up pretty quick, doesn't it? Are you into sports at all?
Yeah. So, like, since everything's changed, but yeah, of course, I was a Saints fan. Being from New Orleans, you can't. But once I see behind the veil and understand how things work, I don't believe that the NFL is real anymore, in the sense that I don't think people spend billions of dollars in businesses and do not have a predetermined result. I think they get really good on convincing people that there's belief behind it. But after watching some of those Saints games, especially that some of those calls against the Rams in 20 and some of these just far out officials, you're like, you know what? Nah, this is predetermined. No, I'm not saying it's wrestling. They're both entertainment companies. If you look up WWE, which is sold, it's registered as an entertainment company. So is NFL. It's an entertainment business.
Yeah. I'm a Vikings fan.
Okay. And, I don't. So obviously, you got the. I don't even.
Yeah, I could say the Saints game of when they took out Brett Favre.
That's when we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was the Super Bowl year. I remember that.
Defense gate.
Because they changed the rule the following year, because Brett Favre whined that he didn't get a chance with the ball because of how the extra points, because it was sudden death always. So we kicked the field goal And it was like, oh, that's not fair. We don't get the field. It's like, well, that's how overtime rules are. Dude, what do you mean it's not fair? They didn't decide it that. But yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, that's you could do a whole podcast on just bullshit calls. I just seen it the other day in baseball, the Twins and
fixed.
Cleveland game,
It's
you
fixed.
know.
When there's that much money passing
Well,
hands
and
and
then you add in
work,
gambling now,
we own
right?
the billions, it's fixed. And so what, and meditating and understanding. So that took some of the thing, but yes, I can still find entertainment. As Johnny told me the last time Kenny and I were having a heated discussion, he said, both of you guys just need to chill out. And he's like, you guys need to stop being so in depth about everything you talk about and just like watch a football game and relax. And so I do find it, and I can choose football and not see the business side of it, and can just enjoy it for what it is, of, a game. And so, yeah, I do find it entertaining.
Now, speaking of Johnny, he's got his hands full with Quiet Riot. Seems to be doing really well with that.
Quiet Riot, Kill Devil Hill, Hookers and Blow. I
Yeah,
am. What am I leaving out? Patriarchs in Black.
yeah.
What am I
It-
leaving
it-
out? His Zeppelin cover bands, Earl's Court, when he's doing them. Silver
yeah.
Tomb. How could I forget Silver Tomb? God, I love Silver Tomb.
What's going on there? I mean, honestly, when COVID hit, I actually had tickets to go see Silver Tomb open up for Monster Magnet up in
Yeah,
Minneapolis, and then
yeah.
um, COVID hit, and that was the end of it.
Well,
Um,
so Kenny's got a Silver Tomb record. It's going to come out. I don't know when. He hasn't really given me a lot of dates. It's not. Um, I would love to put it out. He knows that, but I think he already has a deal with what he did the first one with Long Branch. I think was the label, and I think they have the option of picking it up. So I know a new we will have a new Silver Tomb maybe in 24, 25. It's done. I think he's just finding right. I still not that it took his attention away from it, because I haven't. It's always his, but the I am stuff started gearing up, and that was going, and so he's been working on that. But we'll have some Silver Tomb. They're super active. All the dudes are great. It's not going anywhere. It's really good. I think Silver Tomb is a lot darker than like what the I Am stuff is. I think the I Am is kind of like more of a rock and roll 70s retro vibe feel to it,
right.
But Silver Tomb's alive and well and healthy, and the new stuff's killer. If you like the
Yeah,
first, you're gonna love it.
right. I want to get your opinion on this, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, and that's not what I'm trying to do here by any means. But you take some of these like Pantera, who's out on the road, right?
Sure.
At fill-in guys, it's always been brought up. Should Typo Negative do a tour, do just one show of that? I know you've probably been asked this a dozen times, but
Sure.
for working with them and being out on the road with them and all that, and me being as a true fan, I can
Yeah.
honestly say I would go in a fucking heartbeat just because I love what's still there now. Obviously, Josh Silver, I mean, that's a different story there, but
I think that's the biggest story.
put that as what's that?
I think that's the bigger story of it all.
Is just getting him on board. Is that what it is? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's the biggest story. So not that. So my opinion, I think I who cares, right? But if since you're at you do, so since you're asking, I would say, as a fan, I don't need it, right?
Yeah,
But it doesn't mean if it wasn't presented to me that I wouldn't go out and enjoy the hell out of it. I
sure.
wouldn't hate I'm not a hater.
Right,
So just like the Pantera, I don't hate on the Pantera reunion. I think it's fine, or whatever people want to call
right.
it. I'm not going to say anything negative about it. you can't replace Peter. So just a hypothetical, I would like to see a Dio situation to where they would bring out a hologram, and they would have Peter's hologram, and they would take the best live performances that they've got recorded of his vocals throughout the festivals and the stuff that's on YouTube, and take that and present that with a hologram with the three dudes playing. I think that would be the coolest, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that. But so let's just say that didn't happen, and that they got a guy to do the Peter part. Who do I think could do that? And that's saying that Josh would do it, or that they found somebody to do Josh.
Yeah.
I hear a lot. I think, me personally, I think this guy, I think would be the coolest would be to have like 6 to 8 of Peter's friends, heroes, and current that would want to participate and pay homage and respect, kind of like the Taylor Hawkins thing that,
Sure.
like maybe because Kirk's a huge Typo fan, and maybe have Kirk do, and maybe not necessarily have a Typo, but if it's about, do a Peter Steele celebration and do
Right.
some carnivore songs and do
Right.
some of that, and have Kirk sing a carnivore song. So I would like that. But now if we're getting down, it has to be a guy doing just Peter, and I think the coolest one would be Chris Connolly. And Chris Connolly, if you're familiar, was this guy, and is this guy that he did a couple of records with Ministry, and he did a bunch of these solo albums on this independent industrial label, Wax Trax Records, which, speaking of, staples of artists, Wax Trax was that for industrial music, as Epitaph Records and Fat Records is for punk rock. So if you take some of that, Chris Connolly's voice, he's got a very Scott Walker, David Bowie feel. And I think that he could do the romantic parts that Typo Negative has, like super authentic, the way that Peter's romantic would be without the cheese. Because I think, like being an Elvis guy, what makes a really good Elvis impersonator, some of it is the amount of cheese of the things. And so I think Peter's of the deep voice and of the green man, I think some of those characteristics folks tend to I wouldn't want to see like a Elvis impersonator approach to it. I think that would be kind of tacky, in my opinion, for what it's worth. So I think taking an artist who's comfortable in his own skin, such as somebody like Chris Connolly, that has his own identity, that would do he would do the art justice, I think, and then he can do the screaming and the wailing. So, but I know he's not necessarily the Billboard. I know the guy from him, Ville, apparently had a Typo cover band before his popularity, and has expressed his fondness of Typo Negative throughout, and its influence in his vibe of like what he presents. So if I'm a booking guy and I'm looking to sell tickets, I'd probably like try to do a guy like that.
Right. Yeah. It's just an interesting, you know what I mean? I just like hearing guys' different views on that. And
That would be mine, like of like all the hypothetical situations. But like I said, I think the ultimate question is not it would be Josh. And I think it would be really important for Josh to do it, but Josh would have to want to do it. And who cares why, when people say the Pantera, who cares if it's for money? Who cares? Like, so
and
what?
that's why I'm kind of circling around to that, just because I brought up earlier of how bigger they are today versus 20 years ago. And
They are.
Yeah.
I would cash. If it was me, bro, I would cash in. I don't think I think if anything, it's honoring your friend. I think Peter would be this is my perspective and my opinion.
Yeah.
If he thought those guys could make money, I think he'd be freaking stoked that he had the ability to leave behind something for the dudes that he cared about, that
Right.
like a house for your kids, like you want to do. If there's an opportunity like that for them, I would say thanks, mom, and I would
Right.
embrace it with grace, because that's what it's like. And anyone that
Yeah.
has a that wants to say that has a cat, they can have that opinion. It doesn't
Right.
matter.
You're all entitled to it. Doesn't mean you have to go do it. And you know what I mean? That's the problem with society today, right there.
It's,
I should
it's,
be believing what you're believing, and I should
there's
be,
going to
you
be
know what I
haters.
mean? Oh,
If they don't do it, people are going to whine. If they do it, people are going to whine. So anyway,
no,
people are going to whining. You might as well, if people are whining, you might as well do it with a few extra dollars in your pocket.
right.
There's no intent. I don't think it hurts the integrity of the band. I don't think there's anything that the living members could do to affect Peter's legacy. I don't. I really don't. Even if they had some other Elvis impersonator doing it. Now, not that that would ever happen, but a hypothetical world, right, where you've seen that
Right.
with bands. Um,
Yeah.
I still, it's not a reflection of what I think. Uh, if they want to honor their friend, I think he's definitely worthy of being honored. I think he's deserving of it.
Oh,
In
yeah.
that aspect of
Absolutely. I mean,
Taylor Hawkins was honored by his friend Dave. So I think from a friendship level, I would think it'd be really cool if Josh and Kenny and Johnny did that for their buddy. And if
yeah.
they were able to make some money on it, that'd be really cool too.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Uh-uh.
Just even a one-off show, even a one-off show, you know, I could only imagine. I mean, that thing would just, I could only imagine it'd probably sell out in minutes. I would,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it would do
um,
really well. It'd do really popular, and it would be great. And I don't think it has anything, it would hurt any part of the legacy.
yeah.
Anyone that thinks it does, they're entitled to that opinion. I don't have an insider scoop or anything like that. There's no scoop to be had. It's just, I guess I'm just at an age in my life to where I see people doing what they want to do, regardless of why they do it. As long as they're doing something that they want to do,
Yep.
it's relevant to what anyone
Right.
else is. It's
Right.
relevant.
That I am, I ordered that signed deal. I think it's a signed single that you should
Yeah,
sent me.
cool.
And that was back during Christmas time. I want to say, and
Yes.
I gotta say that album, that cover that's on that is, I love just that black and white and then just the green of Kenny's guitar. I think that's fabulous. Whoever
Sure.
came up with that is phenomenal job.
Cool. Um, that is a photo that I took at the video shoot for the song that went through one of the program filters. I forget which filter that it went through, because originally that background was red, but it's from the Dreams Always Die with the Sun
Uh-huh.
video shoot in New Orleans.
Yeah. But it's a cool cover. I mean, just it's just simple, but it's almost kind of bold too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of fits like the vibe of that 70s rock, kind of like even though it's a little dark, but it's really simple. The logo's simple. It's pretty basic. There's definitely, like anything, it's in the growing process, right?
Yeah.
So, I've heard a lot of comments from out there. They're like, "Oh, that logo sucks." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not in the low. I would, yeah,
There
you're
again, you're not going to please everybody, right?
it could be better, sure. Like I'm open to that. I don't get offended on constructive criticism. People are being
Yeah.
rude just to be rude. That's fine. Yeah, I'm going to ignore it and I'll probably block them. But
Right.
I don't mind. For sure we could have that logo change. Look at Metallica's logo throughout the years. What
Right.
that was morphed how many times? So yeah, I want the logo to change. It needs to.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, I don't want to take more of your time and that. Appreciate you spending the time with me this afternoon
Thank you. I appreciate
and
you.
as you get stuff done and that, it'd be kind of cool if make it work of getting some of the guys on with me sometime or doing something. And
Yeah, we can work that out. Yeah, when we get the album come out for release, man, I'll hit you up and we'll sort that out. Okay.
yeah, I normally have a co-host on with me, but she's tied up doing a bunch of she does these murder mystery things too off to the side and that kind of stuff. And she's phenomenal of podcasting and that. But yeah, love to join in and do all that. Huge Danzig fan, so she'd love to be in on that.
There's Johnny is got a pretty hefty bag of some good Danzig stories, that's for sure.
Yeah. I bet you, I bet you there's a ton of them too. Of just, I remember, I think I was in Omaha. Do you remember a place in Omaha is the Ranch Bowl? Do you remember this place? It's like a bowling alley and a club.
Not off the top of my head. I don't.
Anyway, I saw Soulfly there. I was doing some street stuff, street team stuff with Roadrunner there. And a band that was opening up from, I think it was Sacred Reich.
Oh, I love Sacred Reich.
And one of them guys punched out Glenn Danzig, or they got in a fight or some damn thing backstage, and they were talking about it. Then that's
what I was one that was on the internet. The Northside Kings and Danny and that.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yep.
I remember.
Yep. Yeah. That's who it was. Yeah.
I
couldn't remember of.
Yeah.
It's not my business. I'm not getting into all that deal, but I just how we were just saying of the stories, of.
Yeah, man. What are you gonna do, right? Things happen. It is what it is. It's unfortunate. But what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah. Well, enjoy your warm weather down there. Up here in Iowa, it's about 60 some degrees here, so it's actually consider that a heat wave at this time of year. But
I was gonna say that sounds pretty. That's not bad for right about now. Yeah, we're somewhere in the mid 80s right now. I think like 82 to 85 today.
Yeah. But I appreciate you taking the time and check us out on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for everyone listening and watching and everything, check out Corpse Paint's records on all the social media pages.
Yeah. And iamband.com. I haven't announced it, but it's live. I'm still not done tinkering it, but it's fine if people want to go check it out.
You got your YouTube channel up even too with Corpse Paint's records and all that.
Corpse Paint Records. We got the 2 videos of the guys, and there's some tons of studio footage in there. So yeah, all the socials. Corpse Paint Records got socials, and all the I Am socials. You'll find us there, and we stay pretty active.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for the time, and have a great afternoon. And keep in touch, man.
All right, Rocker. Thanks for the time.
All righty. Thank you.
Care.
See ya.
Get ready to crank up the volume because you're about to enter the realm of rebels and rock stars. Unleashing the thunder from down under the stage. We're diving deep with a deviance of melody, rhythm, and chaos. Now push up your sleeves and get ready to dive into the pit. It's time for Sitting with the Slimy Bastards, Music Edition.